Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including Tesla stopping the sale of multiple cars, official new details for Tesla's more affordable vehicles coming out of China, the latest for Rivian, and more, so let's get into it. First up today, it's very clear at this point that the Cybertruck is a very polarizing vehicle. In fact, I think it's probably the most polarizing vehicle we've ever seen. There are people that absolutely love this thing and will defend it at any cost. And then there are people that absolutely hate this thing and will tear it down at any cost. Still, there are some very real issues that the Cybertruck has been through, some real recalls. Some of those are software recalls, but some were physical recalls that did need to get fixed. But on the other side of things, you have people worried about issues that aren't really proving to be real on the Cybertruck. For instance, Zach's Jerry Rig Everything just posted a test of the Cybertruck that seemed to prove that the Cybertruck couldn't actually hold up to its tow capacity. But when you look at the details, it's actually pretty clear that it held up to much more than that. In his tests, he put a ton of weight on the tow hitch of the Cybertruck, but he was pushing straight down, which actually relates to the tongue rating of this truck. He did mention this in his video and that it's a different rating than the tow rating itself, but also said that certain things like hitting a pothole could end up with the weight going there, and for the Cybertruck it seems like it would snap off instead of just bending like it would on another truck. So in response to this, Tesla's head engineer for the Cybertruck, Wes, tweeted saying, quote, "Zach's test demonstrated around 10 times factor of safety on rated tongue weight. This should inspire confidence to use the vehicle up to its maximum rating. Infographic for those who don't understand the difference in tow rating and tongue weight." Essentially, it details how tongue weight is the weight the trailer puts on the hitch ball, and a general rule for weight distribution is the tongue weight should be 10 to 15% of the total weight being towed. He also added, at 10,000 pounds of tongue weight, the vehicle would be so grossly misloaded, the front wheels would no longer be on the ground. And to answer a common question, no, a pothole will not transfer that much vertical force to the hitch. And that actually was the case in this test. They had to hold down the front of the Cybertruck in order to put this much weight on the tongue. So a lot of people are worried about this, and there does seem to be a valid criticism that the aluminum casting could snap instead of bending when it's overloaded. But tests like this are not scientific, and they seem to go out to prove that the Cybertruck will fail. Still, there will probably be plenty of people talking in the comments about how this is not rated well and the Cybertruck is not designed well, while other people will be saying, I prefer this truck and actually think it held up better than another truck would. Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts though, because it's very interesting to watch people fight about this. At the same time though, the Cybertruck is facing a real issue, which is a delivery halt due to a part issue. Multiple people who are waiting on delivery of their Cybertrucks are reporting that the cantrail trim has been detaching during use. This is actually an issue we had seen happen to previous trucks, but now it seems that it has gotten serious enough and become enough of a common issue that Tesla is either going to have to recall the truck or they're going to have to stop sale until they make some sort of remedy. Reportedly, this is a containment hold to address the problem before these vehicles reach customers. In June of 2024, Tesla actually recalled 11,000 Cybertrucks for a similar trim detachment issue, so we'll see what happens for this one. The Cybertruck overall is a great vehicle once you drive it and really get used to it, but it does have its quirks and it has certain areas that don't make a ton of sense. For instance, when you pull on this piece, it's very clear that it's just attached with some adhesive, and maybe that wasn't the best choice as we're seeing possibly a second recall for this. In any case, we'll have to see how this all develops, and the Cybertruck soon enough should be getting an adaptive lights update, which will be very nice for customers who can take advantage of those Matrix headlights. Speaking of those Matrix headlights, they're already delivering on the brand new refreshed Model Y, and I talked about that a little more in depth in my last video, which you can check out linked up here or in the description below. But Tesla officially posted about first deliveries of these cars, and they posted a bunch of photos with excited new customers, executives, and more. They officially began deliveries out of their Giga Texas and Fremont factories, and at the Texas factory they had a pretty cool display of a Model Y in all of its pieces kind of spread out so that you could really see. Tesla also now has done an official interview with Sandy Munro over at Munro Live, and it gives us a little bit of insight into the advancement that this car has brought. On the surface, when we see a facelift like this from Tesla, we know that of course they're changing some panels and design, but a lot of people assume that under the surface it's exactly the same. Well, that is not at all the case with the Model Y. Yes, it's not bringing a 48-volt architecture, 800-volt architecture, much bigger battery or anything like that, but from an engineering perspective, they've, of course, refined from here. In this video, they actually talk about one thing that's a little bit of a step back in a sense, and that's the fact that only Texas and Berlin were the factories that briefly did a full casting of the Model Y, and that was for 4680 cells. For a while, that was actually the thing we were most excited to see for the Model Y, but it didn't end up panning out because those battery cells took a long time to get to fruition. Now we're only seeing those batteries in the Cybertruck. However, the new Model Y has been changed to have one common body around the world so that they can get through any supply issues if they were to arise. There's now a modified version of the old Model Y front end, and the rear end is an entirely new casting. As a result, it's 7 kilos lighter, and it requires about half the machining. They also said they got cycle time down to 75 seconds, down from about 170 to 180 seconds. This is always very impressive to see, and it's the kind of stuff that engineers get really excited about. And no matter their opinion about Tesla, they have to look at this and be pretty impressed. Tesla Manufacturing also tweeted about this, saying, quote, "Conformal cooling enables even heat removal across complex parts throughout the casting, avoiding limitations of traditional straight cooling channels. This helps bring down cycle time, minimizing the time the casting is in a semi-solid state, thus reducing deformations and internal stress. Results in lighter, more precise, and more repeatable castings." Very cool to see. And another thing the Model Y brings out for the first time from Tesla is a new brake system. They call this hydraulic by wire, and it's because it's a brake pedal sensor with a hydraulic backup. So when they want, with systems like Autopilot and FSD, they can control the brake without the pedal actually physically moving. And then that backup is always there for you if needed, of course. From a consumer perspective, that means the brake is always right there available for you. It should improve the braking experience as a whole. And then Tesla said this improves regen because it's available no matter what. So it gives them about 1/4 to 0.5% of an increase in efficiency, which is always great to see. So there are a lot of cool improvements to this car, and for a while in the United States, Tesla has been offering this car and their older trims of the older Model Y, but now the old car has been officially discontinued. The only car that you can buy in their configurator in the United States and Canada, as well as the rest of the world, is the new updated Model Y. For the United States, they're only offering the launch series with all of those upgrades at about $60,000 before a tax credit or anything like that, but soon enough we should see other trims. If you were holding out to get one of those old Model Ys, there are still plenty available in inventory, but it seems like once that inventory runs out, this car will officially be discontinued. In some sense, it's kind of saying goodbye to a very important vehicle for the United States and for the world as a whole. We know it was the best-selling car for the entire world in 2023 and likely for 2024. And for many people, it was their first electric vehicle. So this really was an important vehicle, even though at the time it just seemed like kind of a blown-up version of the Model 3. It ended up being much more popular and appealed to a lot of people and became Tesla's and the world's best-selling vehicle. We'll have to see how this new version pans out, but it's very exciting to see it getting rolled out in all markets. But speaking of later this year, we should see the rear-wheel drive trim come to be, the long-range all-wheel drive return to normal pricing without included upgrades, and then possibly the performance trim of the Model Y, which we've seen out testing in the wild. That will likely bring some of the similar changes we saw on the Model 3 performance, but most people are excited to see what these more affordable vehicles will be from Tesla. Tesla has reiterated multiple times on their last few earnings calls that they are planning for more affordable vehicles to be released in the first half of 2025. They say vehicles plural, and they've reiterated that it's the first half of 2025 for a timeline here. But they haven't been clear on exactly what this vehicle is. Previously, we knew Tesla was making a $25,000 vehicle, and it was actually codenamed NV9. And then we heard that Tesla had discontinued this. Elon Musk kind of denied this, but it does seem like the original plan for a drivable version of that car did get scrapped in favor of just going with some sort of stripped down vehicle. And then you have the Cybercab robotaxi on the other side of things, that when achieved will actually be that very affordable vehicle, just fully autonomous. But now there's a new report coming out of China saying that Tesla is preparing to launch a more affordable Model Y. This is in addition to the other trims of the Model Y that are already more affordable than this launch series. This report comes from 36KR, and it's literally described as lower-priced Model Y. Quote, people familiar with the matter told 36KR that the new model is a lower-priced Model Y. Compared with the current Model Y, the new car's battery, power, and chassis have basically not changed much. So it seems like this would basically be the same overall car with some stripped down interior features, and it actually references the Model 3 that Tesla started selling in Mexico exclusively last year. That's a $35,000 Model 3, and it's the new version of the Model 3, but it has particular downgrades that are only available in that market. For this, Tesla removed the second row screen, removed RGB lighting, used fabric seats, and then of course it's the standard range trim. Not the rear-wheel drive long-range version of the Model 3 and Y that we see in the US today, but actually the standard range version that gets less range and uses a CATL battery pack. So this report actually references Depop or D-content as the approach that Tesla is taking here. Quote, "It is developed through Depop. People familiar with the matter revealed that Depop is a development idea within Tesla, which is to achieve the rapid launch of products by simplifying the configuration while keeping the main functions unchanged." This is very much in line with Tesla's approach here. They don't have many options for their cars, and that's because they can keep things rolling very easily. It brings down cost and simplifies production and helps them to scale up quickly. So here they'd be able to scale up very quickly just by reducing some of the other options associated with the car and potentially keeping the battery pack and the underlying infrastructure basically the same. As for a timeline here, we know that Tesla has said these would be coming within the first half of the year, but over in China it seems like the timeline may be the second half of the year. Quote, "The launch time of these new models will depend on the order performance of the renewed Model Y. If the new Model Y does not perform as expected, Tesla is expected to launch this cheaper Model Y in the second half of this year." China is actually one of Tesla's best markets overall for sales, so it seems like they may be planning to launch it later if they can, because this new Model Y should be fairly popular.
Additional details from Reuters say that this is codenamed E41. It will be built on existing production lines, and mass production will begin at its biggest factory by output in 2026. Interestingly, this one actually does mention that the car will be smaller, so that could indicate that this is a smaller vehicle, not just a pared down version of the existing Model Y chassis. And this would cost about 20% less to produce than the refreshed Model Y currently does for Tesla. But then they also mentioned the Shanghai output will be mainly sold in China to defend market share, but the model will also be produced in Europe and North America. So this comes after that report from 36KR and does specifically mention that the name and size of cost reduction are reported here for the first time. This also says that Tesla plans to launch a 6-seat variant of the Model Y later this year, specifically over in China. So there are a lot more details in this particular report, and I think it's actually a lot more interesting if Tesla does make a vehicle that's smaller and costs them 20% less to produce. In theory, taking a $45,000 price for the Model Y, if Tesla can immediately cut that 20% to the customer, that means a $36,000 smaller version of the Model Y is coming soon.
Over in the United States, however, it does seem like they could use some help out with sales, and so getting a cheaper version of that car sooner might make a lot more sense. And it could be why they've planned specifically and told us on multiple earnings calls that these would be coming within the first half of 2025 and that they're on track to do so. Over in Mexico, there's a $35,000 Model 3 already, so maybe they can launch a $37,000 or $38,000 Model Y standard range with reduced options. Since the overall tariff situation and tax credits and all of that should be changing in the United States for EVs sometime potentially later this year, we could end up with Tesla launching a vehicle that uses a battery pack out of China. Previously, they did this with standard range vehicles, but that battery pack disqualified those cars from the tax credit. Here, if it's going away anyway, they'll probably bring back that battery pack since there's plenty of supply for that pack coming out of China. I actually drove the standard range Model 3 for a long time, and it's a really great car, and it still offers a really great range. It just seems that a lot of customers really prefer the long range, which is why Tesla opted for the long range rear-wheel drive, on top of the reasons being the tax credit. So a lot of people have been excited to see what these new, more affordable models will be. And maybe they actually will be a different frame, a different chassis, something brand new. Maybe they'll also split products between markets, launch something in the United States that is not coming out of China, and China will just actually get a stripped down Model Y. But my hunch is that these more affordable models will actually be this Model 3 that they've already launched in Mexico and a Model Y version of basically that same car. But what are your thoughts? Leave a comment below to let me know what you think Tesla may actually launch later this year that is more affordable. Next up today, let's talk a little bit about Tesla stock. I don't get into Tesla stock too much on this channel, but James Stevenson detailed some of Tesla stock's biggest drops. On 9/8/2020, Tesla dropped 21.1%. On 1/13/2012, Tesla dropped 19.1%. And then we can see a bunch of other numbers, but one notable one is, of course, 3/10/2025, down 15.4% to $222.15. That was, of course, just a few days ago, and it marks one of the largest single-day drops in Tesla history, of course adjusted for splits as well. When you see big drops like this, and the drops we've been seeing lately, of course this worries investors and anyone involved with Tesla. But Elon Musk, of course, reiterated, quote, "It will be fine long term." He said that in response to this tweet directly, and then has also said, "It will require outstanding execution, but I think more like 1000% gain for Tesla in 5 years is possible." That's of course Elon Musk's view, but investors also have plenty to say, and Jim Cramer has recently been talking about Tesla stock. He said, quote, "We're going off charts with Larry Williams, a legendary technician. He's been the best in the business since before I could drive. Tonight he's calling the bottom in Tesla. It may be ready to rally, and furiously." In response to this, a lot of people were making a little bit of a joke because Jim Cramer has a little bit of a history of having the opposite call for Tesla. So if he's saying that this is the bottom, people are worried it could get even worse because Jim always seems to be exactly wrong. But of course, this is not financial advice and is all based on speculation. But one other popular Tesla investor, Dan Ives, has reiterated his outperform rating for Tesla stock, saying it could reach $550 in about 12 months. But he has been open about Tesla and the experience right now with Elon Musk, saying that people's patience is wearing thin. People want to invest in Tesla for Elon Musk being the CEO, not for him working on everything else he's doing right now. This comes at the same time that a lot of people have their own perspectives about Tesla's popularity as a whole. But when looking at Google search results, which is oftentimes a good way to look at things, Google Trends specifically, you can see that buy a Tesla has actually surged quite a bit recently. Then we can see what this looks like charted out compared to sell my Tesla, and sell my Tesla has actually increased, but maybe not quite as much as everyone would expect. There's always a lot going on with Tesla, and there's especially a lot going on right now, but these are just a couple updates about the stock at this point in time. For many people, the stock is one part of Tesla, but many people are more excited about the products that they're planning to bring, like those more affordable vehicles we should hopefully be seeing later this year.
Last up today, some updates from Rivian. Right now, Rivian sells their two vehicles, the R1S and R1T, but many people are anticipating the R2. As such, Rivian has been talking about the timeline for the R2 and says that they do plan for production within the first half of 2026 at their Normal, Illinois factory. RJ Scaringe, Rivian's CEO, actually posted footage of the R2 expansion progress here. Ultimately, this car is expected to start at about $45,000, and Rivian does plan to launch this internationally, which would be their first vehicle to launch internationally. They want to bring this to Europe and other markets after the United States. Their new plant in Georgia is expected to be online in 2028, and that will help them expand production of the R2 beyond this current expansion that we're seeing. And ultimately, their goal is, of course, to make this profitable and help them get to the next level. Tesla originally had the Model S and Model X, but really was able to expand and grow after the Model 3 and then the Model Y. The R2 is expected to start that trend, and then they'll follow with the R3 and R3X, and whatever comes beyond that. The great news here, though, is that Rivian is always working on bringing down cost from the very start of their production. As such, Rivian's CEO, RJ Scaringe, said, quote, "Our R2 drive unit, Maximus, uses continuous winding in the stator to reduce the total welds per stator assembly from 264 on Enduro to 24. I'm so excited for all the cost savings coming to R2. On top of that, he said part consolidation and elimination has been a core focus of R2 development. On the Maximus drive unit, we integrated the rotor shaft and gear into a single forged part. We also optimized the bearings to reduce from 4 on Enduro to 2 on Maximus. So cool." This is the type of development and engineering that really leads to cost savings down the road and can make this car successful and, most importantly for Rivian, profitable. On the other side of things, though, Rivian is also working on their own self-driving technology and just rolled out their new enhanced highway assist and auto lane change features. This is a hands-free mode that monitors with the cameras, but unfortunately it's only available on their latest Gen 2 models. In some sense, Tesla has kind of done this with Hardware 3 and Hardware 4, but they have been delivering their latest full self-driving features even on older vehicles. So it is kind of unfortunate to see that Rivian is somewhat leaving their Gen 1 early adopters in the dust here when it comes to this self-driving technology that they're developing from here. It seems like whatever developments come past this, and even the technology they just delivered, will actually only come to Gen 2 vehicles and beyond. In any case, this is just the start of this feature, and they plan to give it even more self-driving capabilities in the future.
That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see full details about my Cybertruck repair, how much it was and how much others have been, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.